Hello, everybody. So, oftentimes, HoneyBadgers, we try to spend any free moments we may have making videos in an attempt to essentially try to save the world. Save the world through talking about the genders and how they relate to each other. But we also like to just talk about things for fun, and that's why we have the Nerdcast. Today's Nerdcast is Nerdcast number 69.
And it's just me and Brian.
Yes.
We're going to work that as much as we can.
Take from that what you will. But even though today's show is about sex, could we still be saving the world while talking about it? I will argue yes. So, before we get into the main topic of the show, I want to read a couple letters I got that were forwarded to me. So this letter comes from someone who wants to remain anonymous. So I'll just read the section where they asked me the question. So, recently you said that all sociological research is garbage. There's a problem with that. The MRM uses a lot of sociological research to justify its positions. Here are some examples. And then he includes a link to a website called equalitycanada.com. There's a lot of sociological research being cited here. Now, the positions of the MRM are only valid if the sociology being used to support them is also valid. If all sociology is invalid, then a lot of the claims there about the problems of men are unsupported. Do you see what I'm getting at here? And what is your take on that? I thank you for taking a moment to read my thoughts. All right, well, thank you for the letter.
Well, I've never quite figured out where the line is between sociology and other sciences. It's basically, if you're doing an experiment, right, and it's just on people and their reactions, like in groups or individually or whatever, like when you get a bunch of randomers or students in and tell them a bunch of things, that's a sociology experiment, right?
Yeah, generally sociological experiments they're like polls, they're interviews.
No, they can have some validity if they're done right. It's just very easy to do it wrong because it's very easy to go into it with a preconceived sort of conclusion, and you're just looking for any cherry-picked evidence that will support your conclusion. So you've got to work extra hard when looking at sociological data to pick apart any potential biases in the researchers. But if it's done right, it's every bit as much a scientific process as anything else. But it's there's just more pitfalls in doing it right, I suppose.
Yeah, well, the thing about, for example, a harder science, because they call sociology and even psychology, they call those soft sciences. I think it's because it's a lot sketchier. It's difficult to reproduce the same results, which is often the goal of the scientific method, is it not? Like if you're testing gravity and you want to, or whatever things that may exist in the realm of physical science, you want to reproduce results so that you can say, if you do it enough, you can say, well, this hypothesis is now a theory, and if it's something that can be reproduced indefinitely, then we'll make it a law. And it will remain a law until such time that, for whatever reason, that changes, which is very unlikely. That's why we've decided it's a law. But sociology doesn't work that way. Like, I don't think you can possibly reproduce results on a basis consistent enough to where you can actually call it a science. Like, I think that okay, so first I want to respond to this guy. I think he makes a good point when he says that. And I will say that my distrust of sociology, it comes from the idea that mainly, I don't think that it should be called a science. I think I don't think that's the right word for it, because I think of science as something where you're basically taking empirical data and you're trying to make an assessment based on that. But when you're just quizzing people to get their opinions on things, or try to figure out what their feelings are on a given topic, that's just too malleable and it's too easy to use.
Plus, if the data you're taking is feelings, then clearly that's where you're going wrong. But I suppose there are objective things that can be said about the way humans react if it's in a high percentiles or whatever. Like if 99% of people react in a certain way, I can't even think of an example.
No, I think so too. And another thing is that I guess when this guy says there's a lot of sociological research being cited in the MRM, then you can't say that it's you either say that it's valid and therefore the sightings, the stuff cited by the MRM is valid, but then that also makes the stuff cited by feminists valid, and that doesn't make sense because a lot of times the stuff that the MRM is citing it runs counter to the narrative that feminist studies are citing. So if these two things oppose each other, then there's something wrong. Like that means that there's something wrong with the process on some front, right? Because no one does a test on gravity in Italy and then someone else does a test on gravity in like another country and they get different results. Unless somebody's skewing the data.
There's no such thing as Christian physics, even though physics was ostensibly discovered by Christians. And there's no such thing as Islamic algebra, even though algebra was ostensibly discovered by Muslims. It's the same the world over because that's what objective means. That's
exactly
what sciences are interested in. It is a universal language. It sort of needs to be.
Yeah. Plus, I guess for me, I don't often. When I make arguments against feminism, I don't usually use sociological data. I usually try to stick with things like, just for example, I'll just look at it from a logical perspective, or I'll bring out like statistics from like the FBI, for example. I don't know that counts as sociology, but some of the stuff in this link is stuff like, for example, the statistics for domestic violence and rape from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the statistics surrounding how many boys are circumcised and things like that. I'm not sure that those are sociological because you can look at how many boys are circumcised, and that's not a feeling, that's a number, So I'm not really sure, but I will accept that that there is highly likely, a lot of data that's cited by the MRM is sociological.
We should get Dr. Lehman in for a fireside. He's a sociologist, and he's quite good at fighting that corner.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a good idea. Plus, I think I've actually spoken to him before on another stream actually, and because he defended sociology, and I was on a stream with Sandre guy, and we were basically of the opinion that we don't think that sociology is invalid, but maybe calling it a science is a bridge too far. Maybe.
Just to clarify, you didn't say all sociology is bunk like this letter, right?
I don't think that's what I said, but if it is, then I will rescind that comment. I was talking to Bering, and I was already getting frustrated with the internet and stuff like that. So if I don't think I said that, but I don't know for sure. I have to go back and watch the video. So. But I think that's where he got it from, was when I was talking to Bering, and I don't remember exactly what I said.
We had dicks on the brain, folks.
There were dicks in the stream, so and you know how that goes. All right, so I have one more letter. It's a little bit long, but I'm just going to read part of it. Let's see here. Is this the guy? Yeah. Hello, Badgers. This is a guy named Decker. Just writing in an emotional state before sleeping on it to calm down or something of the sort. After listening to the podcast Fireside Chat 20, Madame Gires Works and Metalgate, where Madame Gires spent quite a while talking shit about critics. He seemed to hold quite a disdain for critics as a whole, going so far as to say that we have no skills, create nothing, and only seek to become famous off of other people's work. I found this accusation quite ironic, paired with the complaint that critics pull interpretations out of the works out of their ass and pass it off as unquestionable truth, regardless of the opinions or of even the art's own creator. I'm sure I don't have to point out the hypocrisy at work there, which he's implying that because Madame Gires had strong opinions about critics, that he was criticizing critics, which makes Madame Gires a critic himself. I'm sure he's had some bad run-ins with people hiding behind the title of critic to throw their accusations around under a veil of authority, but that's the thing. To me, there are good critics and there are bad critics. Obviously, I find myself to be a good critic, but I'm more interested in another person on the topics of critics. Who is perhaps the most famous person on earth right now to pull accusations out of their ass, slandering work and creators as being fueled by hate, while hiding under the title of critic so as to get away with it, all as if they have some kind of authority to make these claims as factual? Why, Sarkeesian, of course, a critic who has time and time again failed their job as a critic, to the point where I feel they don't deserve such a prestigious title as that bestowed upon those of us who contribute nothing to society but seek to become famous off of other people's work. Okay, so he goes into what a critic means. So I want to respond to it because I was asked to give my thoughts. Well, first of all, just to be clear, the opinions of people that come on our show are their opinions and not necessarily our opinions. I wanted Madam Gires to be able to vent. The second thing is, I think that what we're seeing here is a case of, it's sort of like in The Matrix, there's a scene where the Oracle is talking to Neo. It's in the second Matrix movie. And she's pointing out that the pigeons that were in the park that she was feeding, no one pays attention to them because they're doing exactly what they are supposed to do. They're acting as though as their programming dictates. But we do take notice when things do not do what they're supposed to do. And I think that Madame Gires is reacting to critics, not all critics per se, although I think his experiences with the critics that he has come to blows with have essentially affected his perspective. So when he talks about critics, it sounds like a broad generalization. And maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not going to put words in the guy's mouth. But I think that his points are valid when applied to the critics that he is talking about. That's just what I think. Do I think that critics produce nothing of value? Well, I did make the comment that Roger Ebert, who was like I think he's probably the most or one of the most famous film critics that we have. He passed away of cancer not long ago. He actually made a film. It was called Return to the Valley of the Dolls, and it was god awful. And so when you see that someone is supposed to be a film critic and the one time they actually made something, it was really bad, then it makes you wonder, are they qualified to be a critic? Because, I mean, I think anybody can be. I mean, we are on this show.
Who's qualified to be a food critic? A chef or just someone with really good taste buds? I mean, there is a difference between the audience and the performer here. Just because, you don't have to be a brilliant performer to understand a brilliant performance. Sort of a paradox in itself. And, in a way, those people do remain more objective than the performer themselves. Because, you get so sort of stuck into your routine that it's very difficult to tell, if you're doing it right or not. And you sort of, this is what an audience is for. It gives you that feedback loop. And, of course, critics can do. I mean, I'm pretty sure I count as a professional critic at this point. I'm just very elaborate with my criticisms.
Yes,
it's and in that feedback itself is sort of content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In many ways, critics, really good critics, or at least the entertaining ones, that when they criticize something, they make it fun.
I mean, good entertainment is criticism, right? Good satire.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in a way, satire and criticism are kind of synonymous, aren't they?
Yeah, they're often. That's actually a lot of. People like the Colbert Report or the Daily Show is essentially criticism of the political system or people who they don't like in politics. And they do it in an elaborate way. They make a fake newsroom and they put stuff on the screen and they have Jon Stewart or who's the new guy they have? I forget his name. African kid.
I saw one clip of him. Really? They replaced Stewart with this guy?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Put him back in the Barbie house, please. I want Stewart.
But yeah, they and that's essentially those are essentially critics. They also just happen to be, reasonably talented entertainers in their own right. Also, so
criticism is related to the word critical, which has less of a negative connotation on it. critical doesn't mean just to shit all over something. It means to analyze it critically, which kind of means objectively, like not only the good things but the bad things. It's important to separate it from the phenomenon we call critical theory.
Yeah,
that was something that was was developed by fucking Marxists almost just over half a century ago, and we're now seeing the fruit of their fucking labor. So look up critical theory and then realize how different it is from the other things. Oh fuck, everyone just dropped out. Oh shit. Okay. Oh god. All right, so I think I just saw a new person flash on the screen just before everyone left. I think that might have been Shannon. I think Shannon came in and chloroformed Brian and then dragged him out to the dungeons because I'm on my own now. And I avoid being live on the internet on my own because you'll all discover how frightfully boring and unwitty I am without a script. Shall I talk to the chat? Oh, hello, chat. All you're saying is talk to us, Mike, and sing. I'm not going to sing. It takes me weeks to figure out how to sing. Actually, it only took me a day yesterday. The second part of the Your Hair Is Whatever song took a fucking day to do. So there you go. That's what happens when I have a day off work, folks. That's why you have to give me enough money so I can have every day off, so I can make a video every day. Oh, someone come back in the fuck. Oi, Allison, are you listening to this shit? Like, normally, like, when Brian drops out, you're supposed to come right into the fucking show and do the hosty things. But no, you're gallivanting, aren't you? You're gallivanting around fucking Canada doing things instead of saving me from the chaos. Okay. Yeah, there's a reason I don't host things, folks, and it's because I don't prepare shit. Brian's good at that. He comes with things written down and stuff, like structure. Okay, we're talking about hentai, and I haven't seen enough hentai to know where this is going.
Oh crap! I don't know what. Sorry, I timed out. I don't know what it is.
Did it think you went idle again?
Yes.
You need to keep refreshing that just to make sure. Dude.
All right, I'm just gonna type stuff into the chat. That's gay. What was the last thing I said?
I
don't remember. All right, well, I'm just gonna leave it at this. Guys, just tell us what you think about the letter and what do you think about critics. Do we have a value for them or not? So, meanwhile, Shannon was trying to get in. She was having trouble with sound. I'm just gonna go into the main topic and fuck Google. Okay, so hentai. Today's show is about hentai, but not only. But we'll start with hentai. Hentai is defined as a subgenre of the Japanese genres of manga and anime, characterized by overtly sexualized characters and sexually explicit images and plots. The word hentai is a Japanese compound word, meaning hen, which means strange or perversion, and tai, which means appearance or condition. Some of the earliest examples of what we might consider to be the precursor to hentai was called shuga. It's a type of erotic art believed to have existed in some form since the Heian period, which is from 784 to 1185, so this is a while back. A very famous print known as The Dream of the Fisherman's Wife, which depicts a woman having relations with two octopi, is a very good example of shuga. It diminished as pornographic photography became more mainstream in the 19th century. In the States, early examples of hentai may have begun in print with a comic called H-Bomb, which was a doujinshi. A doujinshi is a subset of manga, which is self-published. So people who are starting off that don't have publishers, they may publish their own work. And a lot of times it's parody. It's almost like fanfics, but like comic style. But they will also come up with their own original ideas. And H-Bomb was a hentai parody doujin that had featured the Dirty Pair, which was a pair of girls that they didn't wear much. They basically fought, they were like intergalactic space cops, and they always left a great deal of destruction in their wake. And they were in a sexual situation, and that was essentially one of the earliest print works of it. And in animation, there was a reference to it with the character Happosai and his behavior in the martial arts comedy Ranma 1/2. Ranma 1/2 had no sex scenes, but it did feature a great deal of female topless nudity. That was essentially considered nudity in that show. It was basically the extent of it. Among the earliest anime that really broke the hymen of Western exposure to hentai would actually go to Orotsu Kudoji, Legend of the Overfiend. And that was many, many years ago. So today, thanks to the internet, there is an incredible amount of hentai and ecchi anime that is very, very accessible. Some examples include, but are not limited to, these are just some of the types. And I want to thank one of our patrons for helping me with this, because I had no idea that all of this shit existed. Let me just type something in the chat so I don't get kicked out. Okay. Bara, which is called Men's Love. It essentially features, it's homosexual with grown men at varying body types and body hair. Yaoi, or yaoi, I don't know. It's boys' love. Yuri, which is girls' love. These are all the homosexual ones. Lolicon, which is features prepubescent girls. In some cases, they are not actually underage, but they just appear very slight of build. Shotokan, which features prepubescent boys. Bakunyu. Bakunyu actually means exploding breasts, and is basically women with enormous breasts. Futanari, which is voluptuous women with gigantic penises. Often, but not always. Incest. Netorare, fetish cuckolding. Tentacle erotica. This is monsters, often raping women, occasionally men with tentacles, slime, multiple penises, etc. There's a uniform fetish, bondage, very muscular women, rope bondage, and something called X-ray. I didn't even know about this. X-ray sex, which depicts the penetration as though being seen with X-ray vision. So it's all, there's a lot out there. And one of the things I was thinking about was, for a country that is so conservative, which is essentially what we're led to believe, there is a great deal of sex in a lot of their media. And it's not just in their manga and anime, which you can actually just go into any shop and buy, from what I understand. It's just sitting there. But it's also in their, they have live action film like that. They're cartoons that and video games that feature sex as a central theme, even the ones that actually don't have sex in them, but they will revolve around it. For example, I mentioned Ranma 1/2, which is essentially about a boy who, when drenched with cold water, turns into a girl. And he's kind of like dealing with the fact that he has to live in two bodies at once. It's like a curse. But in many ways, I guess, while they use it to make a lot of jokes, there is something about learning to live in both of those bodies. And he realizes the advantages and disadvantages of doing both of those things as he goes. And that's not the only one. There have been other sort of sex-changey stories that they've had. So considering how much sex and is in their media, and we also consider them to be a very conservative country, how do those things work together? Now, I think that one of the things that we have to consider is the fact that we live in the West, and our idea of conservatism has very different roots from theirs. For example, I think that their religion for us, because we had roots in Judeo-Christian religion, and the United States, I believe we have Puritan roots, so it's even more conceivably, it's even more conservative. While Japanese religion is more about self-improvement and deals with Shintoism and some elements of Buddhism and stuff. So they actually are not ashamed of sex, although they do have, they had for many years a lot of censorship, sort of. Like they had restrictions, I think, from the Meiji period, where this is why, I don't know if you've ever noticed, for those of you guys who do watch it, hentai or read maybe comics, you'll notice that while the sex is very explicit, and we've never had cartoons that had sex in them, besides the stuff that was very much for adults, like Fritz the Cat or other. I think Ralph Bakshi's got maybe a couple of examples, but for them it's pretty much like it's par for the course, and so then like the thing is how do we look at that the differences between these two cultures? How is it that Japan can be both very conservative and yet have so much sex in their work? And we would probably consider ourselves to be more progressive, but we actually censor it. And to go back to what I was saying before, a lot of the Japanese manga and anime, they actually censor the sex, even though they have a lot of sex in them. Like they'll have black bars, and or they'll do this thing where they put like a mosaic over the penis or the penetration itself or whatever. But that actually stopped. I mean, I think it has. I noticed that you can find it uncensored way more commonly now. So, thank you, Shannon. You have sound. I want to hear your voice.
Yeah, I have sound.
Oh, okay. Welcome.
And it was that I couldn't hear you guys.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. So I finally, after fucking around with it, just restarted my laptop and that worked. So.
All right.
When in doubt,
have you tried turning it off and on again?
Yeah.
Hey man, that always works. I don't know why, but it always will.
When the apocalypse is about to happen, we can just go, turn the whole Earth off and on again. That'll fix it. All right.
Yeah.
That's my plan. I don't know about you.
Yeah, when I have a deadly disease, I'm just going to turn myself off and on again.
There you go. Wait.
No. See, if I'm on life support, I want to make sure my family pulls the plug and then plugs it back in and see if that works.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta wait. You gotta wait 30 seconds after you unplug it. That's how you reset a router.
Exactly. Some of them were 20 seconds.
That's true.
Yeah. So it depends on what router you have, I guess, like internally in your body.
So we're talking about hentai, and I'm stumbling through it on my own. So
yeah,
maybe,
isn't the whole point of hentai that they have very strict censorship laws over there, and they can't show, or at least they couldn't show, penis and vagina-ness, and even in their porn, they can't. I watched a documentary recently about porn in Japan. And they had the man giving oral to a pillow that looks like a vagina, but they couldn't actually show him giving oral to a vagina, And so I know they have very strict censorship laws, and that was their way of getting around it. Was well, it's not a penis going in there; it's tentacle. But they've always had that sort of thing. If you look back in their art. I think, even centuries back into their art. It's always been part of their, zeitgeist over there.
Yeah,
that weird thing that we have with dogs. Yeah, they have it with squid. I don't know what it is.
Weird thing with dogs. What?
Bestiality, I think.
Yeah, a lot of women like dogs instead of men. Yeah. Over on that side of the world.
I just think that's weirdos, but I mean. That's just me.
Hey, I mean, it's cats as well, but I'm going to go for dogs first because I don't like dogs. But yeah. Whatever weird thing we have with furry animals, they have with tentacled animals. Because it's it's sea.
But I'm sure it's more widespread over there.
Yeah. It's like apparently to East Asian people, like Western people all smell of cheese and dairy products. because they don't have quite so many of those over there, and apparently they smell of fish to us, which I've never noticed either, because they have seafood where we have dairy stuff. So we fuck cows and they fuck squid. It's all good, folks.
And then there's sheep. I mean,
And
like
then
in
there's
Ireland
sheep.
or something, or Scotland.
Don't tell Goodfella.
No. I didn't say it, good fella. She did.
It's usually the Welsh. It's whatever country's next to you is full of sheep shaggers. That's pretty much how it works in fucked up parts of the world.
Is that how it works over there?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, the Australians think New Zealanders are sheep shaggers, and New Zealanders think Australianders. You know what I mean? And everyone thinks Tasmanians
Aussies.
are sheep shaggers.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
So yeah, you were talking about the way that they censor. I think that is really interesting and funny that when the guy is like eating out a pillow. Is that what it was?
Yeah. It was a
pillow
that was supposed to be analogous of a woman's genitalia,
but
and like the girl is holding it and she's reacting as if she's getting eaten out, but she's fully clothed. She's just holding the damn thing. And I think it was actually it was a sexual education video for them over there, because they were trying to get men, I guess, and women to understand that oral's okay or something. At least that was the context of what I was watching. And trust me, I wasn't just watching the porn. I mean, I would if I could find it, because it was entertaining and funny as hell. But it was a documentary thing, and they're just so they have this weird mix over there of completely censored and completely naive and shut off, and then completely explicit in other ways. It's very strange.
Yeah. Well, they also have again, we find it strange because here in the States, there's just what's the saying? Porn, you know it when you see it. But over there, it's the line is not that clear. Because
it's very fuzzy.
Yeah, because while there is just porn, and there exists porn that is censored, which is the stuff you're talking about, and I think that's actually probably that may be considered softcore to them now. You ever notice that they have I don't know what it's called, but they have a kind of hentai where it's all very I think it's supposed to be really romantic, and there's
yes, that was part of what I was watching too. That they went over that stuff too.
Yeah.
So it was just this whole documentary, and I'm sad it was by Vice, because I hate Vice.
Oh.
But it's okay. I watched it on a channel that re-uploaded it, so I didn't give them any clicks.
Okay.
So. But occasionally you'll come. There is something good out of the turd sandwich that is Vice.
Yeah.
So, but I find
I had a really good documentary about North Korea, and
yeah. I watched that whole thing.
When
that was really good.
Broke some ground,
Yeah, they really did, and. It sucks that it's they had some really good shit going on there for a while, and then it's oh, never mind, we're all social justice, derp derp derp. It's damn it.
Yeah, I was with the
maybe it was that attitude that managed to break them into North Korea. It was that ability to fucking manipulate the truth that managed that through which they were able to sneak a camera into North Korea.
Oh,
yeah, it's the Smeagol factor, guys. You need someone jaded enough to fucking tell all these lies if you're ever going to get a journalist into North Korea, or a so-called journalist into North Korea. Well, there were journalists. They were doing journalism at the time. I mean, if anything's fucking...
Yeah, at the time they were.
Yeah,
I'm going to try to find you this documentary so you guys can watch it later, because it's just very strange. So.
All right. Well, we're going back to hentai for a second. I think that another thing to consider is I mentioned before that in the West we considered animation to be for children. And it's weird because originally we didn't. Back in the way back in the days of like the animated cartoons that would come on before you would watch a film, like the stuff that Hanna-Barbera did, or Fleischer. Or,
yeah, this is why Tom and Jerry was so violent, folks, because it wasn't for kids. It was for adults in like theaters.
Yes, and they would, and all the stuff by Tex Avery, where you had, what they considered to be pretty sexualized women dancing on stage, and these wolves would be like, whistling and shit. That was for men. I mean, well, not men, but that was for adults, men and women. They would watch that before they would watch the feature, but it was still pretty tame by today's standards. But at that time, it was kind of racy. And then it came to regular television, and I think they were just filling essentially afternoon slots because they had all these cartoons, and people weren't really going to the theater as often because now there was television. So they would make these like half-hour blocks and drop these cartoons in there, and you would watch these really violent and somewhat sexual, Tom and Jerry, droopy cartoons. And then some of the stuff that had a lot of like racist tones in them, they would leave some of them in, and then some of them were just taken out altogether. Like a lot of the World War II kind of propaganda cartoons, those were most of them removed, except for a few that were either they were. I think that however their vetting process was, but they got past like the people who were putting together the TV shows, and they said, well, this one's okay, but this one's not. So, and it was interesting. Maybe there was also, like with Looney Tunes, I know that they had a few things with the general of the, I can't remember his name, the Japanese general, where they would often parody him and give him big teeth and big round glasses and all that. Or they would just make fun of any particular group of people.
It was Tojo.
Yes, I thought it was Tojo. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I found you the documentary.
Thank you.
The thumbnail is the guy with the pillow. It's very weird.
Oh, awesome. But yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'll put it in the low bar too, so that people who are watching this can also watch it.
Yeah, I'm sorry it's a Vice, thing, but oh well. Meh.
That's all right.
But no, you bring up a good point. Like, did any of you guys see Watership Down?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So
it's there to ruin everyone's childhood. It's a rite of passage.
My sister is terrified of rabbits to this day because of that movie. Well, partially that movie and a few other factors like my rabbit that attacked her. But no, it was so weird because if you look at the trailer for Watership Down, it's like, oh, look at the fluffy bunnies, and it's like they're totally marketing it to kids because they didn't know how to market it because it was animated.
Yeah.
And so
maybe
they're
this
like,
was
oh,
the point.
that's a good movie.
Maybe this was their way of getting kids to understand death even before the actual rabbit dies. Because if it's grandma first, then it fucking kills him. If it's the rabbit first, then that's still a bit hard, but at least it breaks him in for grandma. But if it's an animated rabbit first, that breaks him in for the real rabbit, which breaks him in for grandma.
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally getting that black spirit rabbit thing tattooed on me. I can't remember his name, but
like, yeah, and there was also Animal Farm, which was also a little bit too. It was a little hard for kids to watch. I know that it fucked me up when I think I saw it when I was 11, and I was expecting something very different because it starts off pretty lighthearted, and then by the end you're like, holy shit. But the thing is, though, the difference between adult cartoons in the West and children's cartoons in the West was a pretty clear line, and that was mainly because, there was an assumption that if it was animated, it was for kids for whatever reason, and that was an idea that we formed here, and there were only a few exceptions. I already mentioned Fritz the Cat, basically stuff that Ralph Bakshi made. Cool World is like that. Even Who Framed Roger Rabbit has some, semi-mature themes in it. Like Jessica Rabbit, you can't look at and not be like, something is going on here, like as a kid. But they're definitely the exception. In Japan, that is a very blurry line, and they actually have completely different standards. Like, for example, I believe and I could be completely wrong here, but I looked at this a while back. I believe the age of consent in Japan is 13, but it may have gone up since then. But I believe that it is lower than it is in the U.S. And if you guys are in the chat know better, let me know. Put a comment in there so that I don't look like a fool. But
well, you already do because you just said it. No,
but yeah, but like if that's the case, and it's like because they're 13, then that would explain why nudity is common in animes that feature teenage characters that are like 15, 16, so on. So yeah, I believe somebody just said 13 nationally, but depends on the province. It could be 18, but the average is like 16. So that makes sense. So like so when you watch, for example, I mentioned Ranma 1/2, which was one of the first earlier examples that had nudity in it that we were exposed to. I mean, it was going on over there much longer, but what we were exposed to here in the West, there is teenage girls that are topless in it a lot, and there's a lot of fan service. There's even what ecchi, which is sort of like bordering on sex, but it's not really. A lot of like sexual humor. And so when you have that divide, so you have like the stuff for kids, and there's also a lot of like potty humor in the stuff that's aimed at children too, which is something that we don't do here in the West either. So you'll have like the early stuff that has potty humor in it, and they'll even have nudity. Do you remember Dragon Ball? In Dragon Ball, little Goku was naked, right? His little penis was hanging out.
Not only that, but remember in one of the first episodes, Bulma's asleep, and he lifts up her skirt and like starts patting on her, vagina area, looking for her dick. Like, where is it?
Yeah, and that's because there is a completely like, it's just a different attitude around that. But it actually, in many ways, is more honest, because I could see a child curious about, sexual organs or the differences between boys and girls, and they don't have a problem talking about it. So.
Well, I've actually noticed this kind of this blurring you're talking about. Like my husband watches Sentai, not hentai. Sentai.
Like Power Ranger stuff.
I'm clarifying for the viewers. If they don't know what Sentai is, it's what we rip the footage from and make Power Rangers out of. But it's a lot more adult over there. Like it's a lot more like it's bloody. And people die. Like, it's not just monsters running through the abandoned building district. It's like people are fucking dying. Like, they'll even talk about it like my grandfather died in the last monster attack kind of thing. Just how they treat their children differently over there, for example. Back when the show that was airing that became Mighty Morphin, and it was Zyuranger. If you remember in our Mighty Morphin, if you watched it, the Green Ranger, Tommy was like losing his powers, and his powers were running out because of his candle and that kind of thing. Well, over there, the Green Ranger was dying and he only had as long as this candle was there. And so they let Japanese kids vote if he would live or die. And the Japanese kids overwhelmingly voted for him to live. And they killed him anyway. And they saw that as a lesson to teach kids that sometimes heroes just die. No matter how much you want them to live.
You would never get away with that over here.
I know.
It'd never work again, would you?
Yeah, that would never happen over here.
But there are those moments like in Gokaiger, their 35th anniversary one, where they're all like pirates, space pirates. It was weird. But the Yellow Ranger, I'm sure she's like, the actress was about 16, 17. There's this one episode where she, has to work as a housekeeper for this guy. And, she walks out of the changing room in her uniform, and, like, they do the full pan up from her feet all the way up, and does a little spin, and she's in the Lolita, French maid outfit, and she does the little, peace sign, and it's like they play the sexy music, and it's like, yeah, you wouldn't get away with that over here in a kid's show.
Yeah, no, you would not. And that's basically like, comes down to the roots of our history. In Japan, because they don't have the same Puritan roots, I'm pretty sure that's why they consider sex to be just a part of what it is to be human, and so they're not ashamed of it. I think that when it comes to their conservatism, that may be more about just with regards to things like the nuclear family and the man going to work and the mom staying home with the kids kind of thing. But it may not extend to things like this whole like wait until you're this age to have sex. Don't have sex till you're married. That kind of thing. Or even if they do, it's possible that all of this hentai, which is very much like accessible, is there to perhaps give people like something to do while they're waiting for that right person to come along. I don't know. Like I think that in a way it scratches an itch, or otherwise I don't think there would be a market, or at least not as much as there is. So as far as the number of the censorship in Japan, where they didn't show, for example, they wouldn't show things like penetration, which is what Shannon pointed out. They didn't show. I think you couldn't have like hair, like body hair. So they would, at least they used to do it this way. So you women wouldn't have bushes, that kind of thing. But that's changed. They become a lot more lax about it now. Uncensored hentai and anime and manga is very accessible. They have actually changed. I think this is maybe a product of the internet, where they are taking a more global approach into how they do things. Like, for example, Japanese porn, which was like the live action stuff, that was pretty much restricted to Japan, and it only had Japanese actors in it. But nowadays, you can actually find a lot of crossover, where you'll have Japanese porn actresses come to America and have sex with American porn actors, and vice versa. You'd have like American porn actresses go to Japan and interact with male or female porn stars there too. So there seems to be a real shift in how they approach the media. And then let's not forget another sort of step in this blurring is something that often people call ecchi or fan service, where it's not sex, it's not hentai, it's usually trying to tell another story, but there's a lot of like really close, really flirty, voyeuristic stuff that happens in it. Like you were mentioning the girl who turns into gets into the Lolita maid costume.
Yeah.
Or like the bit where Goku is looking up Bulma's skirt at her panties. Like that would never happen here unless the story was sexual in its nature, unless it was about that. But Dragon Ball is not about that, right? I mean, not at all.
No, it was just incidental.
So it was just an incidental, humorous moment where we're making fun of the essentially the naivete of this little boy, or when
he did take off her panties, and then Roshi saw her, hoo-ha, and nosebleed ensues.
Yeah. Or I think there was a scene I remember laughing at so hard at how they handled it, where Goku as a I don't know, not a baby, but as a child, is standing. He's just standing there naked, right? I think it was after he accomplished something or whatever. And in the Japanese version, he's just standing there naked, and his little baby balls are just out, his little twig and berries, right? But in the American version, they had an artist come in and draw a flower.
Well, it depends on which version you have, though.
Yeah.
Like
well, this was how it was
husband...
when it was on TV.
Yeah.
It was on television.
Yeah, because my husband has the DVD sets, and they're uncensored and everything, and extended and uncut, and
yeah.
it's still the Funimation dub, so.
Yeah, but what they did was it was on the television version, they drew a flower, and it was like a little daisy, and it basically grew right next to Goku and happened to bend or it was right in between his legs or something, but it covered him up. And I was thinking about that, and when I look at that in retrospect, I think that there is definitely, we have a problem with child nudity, especially I think boy nudity, because if you think about it, like girl nudity, generally you're not going to see much because there's no organs on the outside. But I think that in general we have a problem with child nudity, and I think it's because we have a fear that simply seeing a naked baby or a toddler or boy or girl will mean that there's something predatory or bordering on pedophilia as a result of that. And even saying that, there's a part of me that's a little, that gets a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that that's actually what I find really interesting, because in Japan they don't care, and it's not because they're pedophiles. It's because their whole, it's so what? It's a naked person. Like what is nakedness to them and what is nakedness to us are very, very different.
Yeah.
And then there are some countries that are even worse, I think, that are more Puritan than we are. I think probably, I don't know for sure, but I know that there's other countries that are more, that have more Puritan than we are. And someone in the chat pointed out that when you're covering it up, you actually draw more attention to it because people are wondering why you covered it up. And I think that over there they don't even think about that stuff. So just something I noticed.
Yeah.
But one of the other things, going back to the ecchi stuff, so there's a series called Queen's Blade. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
No. Okay. So it's basically like a fighting. I don't know. It's like a tournament or something. But there's a lot of them. There's a lot of these stories that have, they don't have sex in them, but there's a lot of almost teasy kind of like sexual situations. So like Queen's Blade is one. There's one called Sekirei. There's Tenchi Muyo, for example. They'll like all these ones that have harem girls in them, and they'll imply things. There's even one, it's really popular right now, called Shimoneta, and it's actually got a really long title, but it's all about living in this world where sex and sexual thoughts and like anything that deals with sex is strictly prohibited. And it's basically like this Orwellian nightmare. And there is this person or this group of people that want to change all that. And it's really interesting because I think that they're speaking on a real growing problem. I don't think it's really a big problem in Japan, but it's definitely a big thing in the West, where the idea of these sort of like sex negative practices is getting to the point where it's like, it's censoring things. And the funny thing is that, I mean, historically it's always come from the right, but now it seems to be coming from the left as well, because they're afraid of, things like, oh, is this promoting rape culture? Is this objectifying women? Is this like, is this going to create a, an atmosphere of sexual predatory predation towards women? And
rapeage.
Yeah, and we're trying to essentially. That's their. I think Shimoneta is actually kind of making a really strong case against that, and it's poking a lot of fun at it. And it does have, again, more of that sort of implied, very cleverly done sexuality without actually going into the realm of being porn, which is it's really interesting because for me, I don't think that we have an easy time doing that in the West. Although I think that because people are being exposed to a lot of this stuff, it's becoming more common for people to try to walk that line or cross over into that. But there is that. I think there is those roots that are pretty much going to always be an obstacle. So.
Now, have we discussed the crime rates in Japan? I mean, which include the rape rates?
No, but
I don't know how connected any of this is, but yeah.
Well, that's actually the next most interesting thing. So Japan, despite having all of this, all of this sex, basically. I mean, they have penis festivals, they have vagina festivals. Like I said before, hentai shit is pretty much everywhere. Like I've seen pencil sharpeners that look like a woman's ass, and you put the pencil in to sharpen it. And there's actually like it looks like it's basically a girl bent over, and you put the pencil in her asshole to sharpen it. Like this is like the degree to which they're okay with sex in everything.
It's like it would be over here if there weren't so many millions of fucking people complaining. Sorry,
yes. But does Japan have a rape culture despite the fact that they have so much sex going on in all of their media? Well, I'm looking at a list of some statistics here. This is rapes per million people, countries compared. All right. At the bottom of the list, well, it's not at the bottom. At the bottom are like these little teeny countries that I don't know about. Japan, out of 116 countries, ranks 103rd. So it's pretty low. Now, this was the most recent study they have is from 2010, so that's about 6 years ago. So it's hard to say whether or not that's changed much. The number is 10 rapes per 1 million people. So yeah, well, that's pretty low, right? Now, I want to throw a caveat in there, though. It's
consistent with all the other crimes, by the way. In case anyone's sort of knee-jerk going to, well, what about unreported? Well, you do it at the same rate for every other country, and you still get a lower rate in Japan. Yeah.
Yes. But then there is one other thing to consider too. This is going to probably skew the numbers, but it's impossible to know how much. Japan does have a cultural. They have a cultural thing where if you are the victim of a crime, it is, or you may be the victim of a crime, you are less likely to. You are more likely to just sort of like move on with your life and not really dwell on it. So there is a lot of stuff that goes sort of unreported. Like there's a bit of shame that comes with being a victim. So people kind of like tend to underreport as a result. But I don't think it's going to make the numbers that much different. At the United States, by the way, according to this, if you want to see where we rank, is in, let's see, 14th place. 274 per 1 million.
No, number one is South Africa. It's no surprise.
Yes. Number one is South Africa with 1,324 for 1 million.
Way to go, Nelson. You deserve that place in history, Nelson. Great job.
Still a pretty low number, though, when you think about it. 1,324 out of 1 million it's too high, but it's not 1 out of 4, is it? So.
No, it's totally 1 out of 4. The numbers are lying, damn it.
So Japan has more sex in their media and less rape than most other countries, save for places like Turkmenistan and like I don't know, Armenia. Okay, maybe Armenia has even more hentai. Maybe we should look up Armenian hentai and get right on that.
I'm on it.
Okay. But yeah, so that's the.
I'm gonna mute myself so you don't have to hear me typing.
Oh, that's fine. So that's the so those are the crime statistics in Japan. So let's look at video games. So Japan has straight up rape simulators. They have straight up games where you stalk people and you chase them back to their place or whatever, or you seduce them over time or otherwise dominate women. There's one by a group, I think it's a developer called Illusion, and it's called Rapeplay, and that's supposed to be the central premise. Interestingly enough, that is, I don't know how popular a game it is, but I wonder if games like that existing are actually giving people who may be potential offenders an outlet so they actually don't go and offend. I mean, like, think about it. Like, for example, video games that focus on violence, like shooting and stuff, have been known. The studies show they actually make people less violent because they get it all out of their system in a simulated way. So if that, and that was what Jack Thompson was trying to prove back in the 90s, right? So if Jack Thompson was proved wrong in terms of video game violence promoting real life violence, then could it also be said that not to say that there's a lot of rapists that have video games, but if there is a game that allows you to simulate seduction or stalking or rape or whatever, or just sex, would it also lower the actual crime of, going out and sexually assaulting someone? I mean, I don't know. I think it may just be that I'm looking too far into it, but I think that there could be a case that's to be made for that.
There may be a correlation.
There may be. I mean,
all I found, by the way, when I looked up Armenian hentai, were random porn, but a couple images of Michael Myers, like, Michael Myers, the killer from Halloween, fucking a chick from behind in a bathroom.
What?
You have found the wrong place. You have found the wrong place of the internet. It sounds like the right place, but it is the wrong place.
I need to roll away slowly.
Yes, please.
The things I find for you people, yeah. Jesus.
It's crazy. But
I'd have thought that would be a Google whack, Armenian hentai. I'd have thought that would be one result and one result only.
Well, I just went to images, and it did try to correct it to Armenian henna.
We don't need to multiply. Their system fans will love that reference. Yeah. All right, carry on.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Well done, Mike. Well done.
Yeah, so anyway, I was just saying, like, I think that's entirely possible. Like that, in the same way that a shooting game could lower the violence, it's possible that a rape game could also lower that. Like, here's another thing, too. Like, they have Lolicon, and there are games that let you, I'm assuming, I'm pretty sure that they're out there, where, like, the dating simulators, they often have different kinds of girls. And you'll have, like, the older, mature woman, the sort of like athletic one, the tsundere one, and then there's always like the one that appears to be underage.
Like honeypot, pretty much.
The lolicon one, yeah. But I would say that I'm only saying appears to be because sometimes it's difficult to actually know what the age of the character are. So you're just basing it on what they look like.
I love how we've got to the point where we just say tsundere and don't feel the need to elaborate.
Yeah.
No, this is the degree to which our cultures have mixed, ladies and gentlemen. I think most of our audience probably does know what tsundere means. It's sort of.
No, it's cultural appropriation.
It's crabby, right? It means sort of subversively unagreeable, right?
Yeah, it means that it's like they're basically putting on a false front of not liking you, but they secretly do. It's basically when what is it, when a boy picks on a girl at school, like pulls on her hair or does things to her that appear to be aggressive. Oftentimes it's because he kind of likes her, but he doesn't know how to express it, and he may not even fully understand it because they could be pretty young. So, and that's essentially tsundere is that's pretty much what that is. So, and then the opposite of that, I think, is I could be wrong here. I think it's yandere, where they're basically like just all over you and
yandere simulator.
Yeah, or
that thing is hilarious.
Yeah. So anyway. But yeah, when we talked a little bit on another show about pedophilia and or hebephilia and like whatever the similarities between those two things. And one of the things that I think it was in a Nerd Revolt, and I was talking about how while I'm certainly against the act of pedophilia because it harms children, there are people with pedophilic tendencies, right? They're out there. So how do we protect children? Well, I mean, obviously we make it legal, which we did, and there's there's ways to essentially protect children from predators, but that doesn't change the fact that pedophiles exist. So they need an outlet, and I think that, like, I remember when 8chan was first put together. One of the accusations that was levied against it by social justice warriors was the fact that the guy Hot Wheels who ran it was allowing pedophiles to talk about their experiences and their fantasies or whatever, and they didn't like that because they didn't think that those people should be given a place to do anything, like they should just be, I don't know, buried under a prison or something. But the fact is, the overwhelming majority of pedophiles do not practice because they are aware that what they want is harmful. So instead, they have to find another outlet. And I bring this up because I think that Lolicon, for example, I think that's actually a way for them to deal with that. I think that's a way for them to get that outlet that otherwise they can't. And there's probably games that let them do it too that are out there. So I think that that's actually, in a way, it's good for them. And we would consider, like, it's weird because when like, for example, if you go to a website like JList and you're looking at hentai manga, they will put a disclaimer at the top saying all of the characters in these mangas are over 18, even if they appear to be slight of build and younger. We swear to God they are over to 18. But the fact is, first of all, they're drawings, so they're not a certain age. They're just drawings. Secondly, there's no way to know for sure, but they're just covering their own ass by saying that. And it makes sense, but the fact is that that's likely not the case because the age of consent in Japan is different. Secondly, the way that they treat sex is nothing like the way that we do also. So
I kind of have a segue there.
Okay, go ahead.
Over there, because, again, another documentary I saw, it seems like over there they have this idea and this attitude that, sex is a necessary part of life, and it, like, the documentary I was watching, it was about Japanese medical sex workers, and what they do is, like, if a man is too disabled to masturbate, they will they come over, like, it's a nurse, and they come to your house and they will, like, masturbate the men until they achieve orgasm, and then they leave, and it's just a thing over there.
Yeah.
Like
we have them over here, but only for farm animals.
Yeah.
What?
What?
Is that just me?
Mike, stay out of the barnyard.
It's something about we're learning about the UK right now.
No, but it's I don't know, it's someone's job to wank off the animals occasionally.
Oh yeah, to give.
Remember that, folks.
Yeah.
I know we all talk about where meat comes from, but remember the process. Somewhere along the line, it has to wank off an animal.
Yes, that's right.
Meat's not just murder; it's also whatever that is.
And we do the same thing, by the way, with in hentai. They do the same thing with incest. They change the story, and I think they're trying to essentially make sure that people in the West are not too taken aback. And I won't lie. Like, all of this shit is weird to me. It's not. I don't find it particularly stimulating, but I know that it's out there. I think that when Shannon says that sex is a primal thing, and I think that there's it's very complex. And if Cherry was here, she could probably speak to this. I invited her, but I don't think she could make it. And but yeah, I mean it's a complex thing, and I think that the important thing is what I'm getting at is that if we're going to talk about this stuff, we have to be as open and as honest as possible, and be willing to go where it's not that comfortable, to try to better understand it. So that's why I'm doing this. I think that this is interesting in that I think that it's important to try to understand, to ask the question, why does this exist? And if there's an interest in it, is it just because those people over there are bad people because they like it, or is there something more complex going on? I mean, could the incest thing, could the incest thing be Freudian?
Basically, fuck you, dolphin. Fuck you, whale.
Fuck you, dolphin.
Fuck you, dolphin.
Fuck you, whale.
Fuck you, squid. I know squid to do something. Squid to do 9/11.
All right.
Oh my god.
Let's go in a whole other direction. I want to talk more about games real quick. So we've seen. Okay, so there are games that are just porno games. Like there's I think there's one a website where people can go and they get flash games. I don't know. It's behind a paywall. It's called well, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But there are places where people can go.
Because you tried.
No, I can't remember what it's called. It's Zone. I think it's called Zone, or there's a character named Zone Chan or something like that. But anyway, there are places like that where they're just sex games, and you just I guess you just click on things and stuff happens. But and then of course there are the porno games like Rape Play and all that. But what I'm thinking about more than that are the games that are just mainstream games that actually have or try to put sex in them. For example, Mass Effect. So, if you play Mass Effect, you can actually have a relationship with a character. But the relationship is only culminated, thank you, when you have sex with them. Like, that's the goal, right? And I think it's really interesting. That and also Dragon Age is the same thing. It's interesting to me because there is this idea when they put the game together that if you're going to have a relationship with a character, it doesn't count as a relationship until you guys are fucking. Like, that's how you know you've won. Like, that's essentially the final step of the journey for many of these games. Now, I think there's an exception to it. Like, I haven't played, like, the newer the Dragon Ages, but I think, like, I played the first Dragon Age. It's the only one I played, and I didn't really like it that much. I thought that it was okay, but I thought it was a little too easy. Like, I literally only died once playing that game, and that was because I went into an area and I wasn't prepared, and a dragon killed me. And then I basically was like, okay, let me just change my plan, and I, went in there and I killed the dragon. But I did manage to start a relationship with Leliana, who was like the bard chick, and once it got to the point where I was able to have sex with her because that was essentially the ultimate goal, then we did, and of course it's done in this really cheesy way, and there's like a fucking by a campfire, and they're still clothed, and it's just weird. Like, I was watching this, and I felt like I was like a voyeur on somebody else's experience, and the graphics are a little dated, so the characters look like mannequins that are just kind of it was just weird. Like, I don't know. Like, I was kind of like, why is this in here? And but after that, I could just do it to her whenever I wanted. Like, I was like, oh, let's fuck, But I literally did it like maybe one other time, and I was like, I'm not gonna have sex with her anymore because I didn't like it. Like, I mean, I just didn't think it was all that entertaining, and I wanted to get on with the game part. And the funny thing is that when I look back on it, it feels a little tacked on. Like, like there's no mini game or anything. It's not like God of War, where in God of War when you
sex mini games.
Yeah, in God of War there were sex mini games, and it was like push these buttons, turn the knob, all that shit. At least that was fun, and
and it was funny.
And they made it funny. So that I think that that's a good example of how you can kind of still make it entertaining. But even then, it's like a QuickTime event. Essentially, having sex with Aphrodite is the same as, figuring out how to pull the eyeball out of the Cyclops. And it's just like a series of button presses. But they made it fun to do. In Mass Effect, I think I never played Mass Effect, but I've watched some Let's
pull the
Plays.
eye out of the Cyclops, by the way. If that was a sex then bravo.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the same. It's pulling the eyeball.
Did you know Twitter posted your thing in Russian?
My thing in Russian? No.
The post about this hangout.
This hangout? In Russian?
It's in Russian.
Oh my god. I don't know. Maybe the communists have invaded our stream.
I don't know. The translate from Russian says, "I ran live on YouTube."
I don't know. I don't get it. I'll look it up later.
Yeah, I just found it funny because I went to go share it.
I may be shadow banned. I know I put up something with the goal to see if I would get shadow banned on Twitter, but
I'm pretty sure I'm shadow banned.
Yeah. How do you know?
My reach isn't there anymore. Like things I know should get a lot of attention. Like just anti-feminist memes that are pretty savage. Would usually get a lot of shares, a lot of interaction, and like where some of the things I used to post it would at least get like 50 likes and stuff, at least. They're getting like 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And I've had people tell me they don't see me in their feed anymore unless they go look, and I'm pretty sure they're keeping me and Mercedes from seeing each other's stuff too. Like she doesn't see mine, I don't see hers. So yeah.
Lame. Yeah, I don't know. I want to know if you guys in the chat want to leave a comment. Let me know how we can find out if there's a way to definitely find out if you are shadow banned. Because I'd like to know. I want to know if I'm in the club.
And if you follow me on Twitter, let me know if you've been seeing me.
Yeah.
In your feed.
To this day, I don't know who's blocked me. I'm not on any blockbot list, and I've never checked to see if anyone's blocked me.
That's because you never tweet.
I do. I occasionally, in between, I do regular sort of updates to the sort of to the.
I know, but you like tweet your videos. You don't like. This is what I am doing.
And I occasionally say a silly thing, but still, not only have I never appeared on a blockbot, but I don't know who I'm blocked by, because I've never checked. And therefore, as far as I know, no one has ever blocked me. Because I don't care who's blocked me on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I've never cared who's blocked me on Twitter because I don't fucking look at the Twitter profiles of people I don't give a shit about, like Steve Shives. I, to this day, do not know if I've been blocked by Steve Shives, and I will never know. Why the fuck would I look at Steve Shives' profile for any reason ever? Like, I don't care about RIP Twitter. I don't care if Twitter burns. I've never given a shit about Twitter. I'm just there because it's 140 characters at a time. It's a laugh. It's a joke. It's only ever been a joke, people. That's why celebrities like it so much. Because it's just a fucking joke.
We need a new thing. We need to build a new thing from the ashes of Twitter that's way better. And we will. And get on it. Guys,
do you remember your reaction
the
first time? Do you remember your reaction the first time you heard about Twitter? Like
I said I don't fucking want that.
It's just Facebook, but only the status.
Yeah.
Seriously? I honestly didn't want Twitter, and I vowed I would not get a Twitter.
An entire social network that's just the status update. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
But the celebrities went, yeah, we like the sound of that. Because we're fucking lazy.
In 140 characters. It's basically, it's sort of like Facebook for the ADHD crowd in a way. But the difference is, speaking of going back to the hentai thing, try going to Twitter and scrolling and not running into porno. I mean, like, maybe it's because of the people who I have added, but you can't scroll for more than a minute without coming across a Mercedes update that has porno in it, or some other porn star that she's retweeted or someone else has, or hentai art. And Facebook will not let you do that. So I will give credit to Twitter for that. So
I have never seen so much vagina as I have on Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, maybe because you haven't been to Tumblr. I think that's basically all the Tumblr is.
I refuse to do Tumblr.
Is people complaining and porn. I think that's and I don't need to go to Tumblr for porn, so I will never go there for people complaining. But as I understand it, that's what's there. One day,
someone in chat just said, anyone who doesn't follow Anita is probably getting shadow banned.
Anyone who doesn't follow Anita?
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
She's on their Trust and Safety Council thing or whatever.
Yeah. She's with the Ministry of Safety and.
Like Mom from Futurama. Like I can only see two futures for us now. One in which Anita Sarkeesian is Mom, and one in which there is no Mom. What's it gonna be, people?
Yes, it's time to get on that. So let's I don't know. Let's see what else. What are some other games? Well, you guys, Shannon, you're a gamer, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. What are some games that you think have some sexual themes, although they may not overtly be sexual? Like Bayonetta, for example. What are some other ones that you think of, or some that you like?
Well, there's definitely God of War.
Oh yeah.
Although we've already brought that up. Shit.
I got one.
You ever play Until Dawn?
No. Is that like a zombie one or something? I never played it.
It's not quite zombies.
Okay.
But yeah, it starts out as, the tip.
Oh, Shannon's gone. That's all right. I'll wait until she comes back. She was just about to tell us what Until Dawn was, and it's gone. She'll come back. Oh, The Witcher. The Witcher has sex like in the first fucking 20 minutes or something like that. And a lot of nudity and stuff too. It's pretty fucking, edgy.
Sex happened in Street Fighter 2 so many times. And not just between Chun-Li and someone else, I'm saying.
Well, yeah, they're just
It's what you make of it, DSC. The best art is what you make of it, and that's what makes games so good. If you can make sex out of the most unlikely places, then you're doing it right.
The sexual tension between Ken and Ryu is palpable.
Palpable, sir.
It's palpable. And and then like there was this wrestling game. It was all girls called Rumble Roses, and you could do these submissions, finishers they weren't sexual, but they kind of were sexual. Dead or Alive has used sex to sell its game series for a long time. There's this one game that oh, Shannon's back.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
And Shannon's front.
Let's not show that. No.
I get one of the back front jokes like once every 5 years. It's like rhyming maybe and baby. Once every 5 years, no more.
Fair enough. But no, I don't know where it cut me off.
You were what were you talking about?
I was talking about Until Dawn.
Yeah, Until Dawn. You were just gonna tell me what it was about and why it's got sexiness in it.
Okay. It's like it starts out typical 80s like slasher flick, but it completely turns it on its head, halfway through, and it's a really good game. I really like it. But what's interesting is there's that one couple that's the really horny couple pretty much, and their whole thing they're trying to do at the start of the game is go to the other cabin so they can be alone and have sex and everything. And the nicer you are, because you're playing as the guy on the way there, because it switches characters all through the game. Like you play as everybody at least once. But you're playing as the guy on the way to the cabin, and the nicer you are to the girl, and like if you say the right things, the more clothing she takes off when you get to the cabin, and you can get her down to her bra and panties.
Aha!
But if you act like a jackass, like she doesn't even take off her coat. So there are those themes there.
That reminds me of another game that actually has sex scene in it too. It was Heavy Rain, or as some people like to call it, Press X to Jason. And
Jason.
Jason.
I love that. I love that game.
Yeah, and there's a scene in there where you get to, as that character. I think his name is Ethan, but I can't remember.
Ethan Morse.
Ethan Morse. You can
Mars.
actually
Mars.
Mars.
Like
the planet.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Does anyone remember Leisure Suit Larry?
Yes.
That's the one I didn't play.
We're going way back here to the early days of PC. It's a point-and-click adventure. There was a lot of these in these sort of early 90s. And if you could answer 5 questions that only adults could answer, then you could get into this point-and-click adventure where you could wander around this sort of urban city as this sort of lounge lizard fellow, eventually fucking hookers and whatnot. And, kids in little business cubicles all over the world found this game and tried to see if they could get through the 5 sort of raunchy questions to get through to the raunchy game, and they had no trouble doing this.
Oh yeah, that's a good one, and a very early one.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yes, mainly like Grand Theft Auto 4, right? Because I know people like the hot coffee mod. I
think that was Vice City.
The hot coffee mod was San Andreas.
Okay.
But like in 4, that was the first one I ever bought, so I couldn't tell you for sure. I mean, I've played around with the other ones, but I never really owned a Grand Theft Auto until 4. And that was the one where you could hire hookers and they would blow you, and you could date women and go to their place. It would be like, it was obvious what had happened, but you didn't really, it wasn't explicit. And of course, it was just like a little part of the overall gameplay. And again, ironically enough, I mean, it was like fun to like achieve, but it wasn't as much fun to actually play as the other elements like driving and shooting and whatnot. But I felt like the Nico, he just needed to get released sometimes. It's hard to be an immigrant with your cousin constantly calling you on the phone to pick you up to take you places. You just want to just get some head from a hooker, and Grand Theft Auto 4 let you do that. So, and I think that 5 may have that too, but I never played it, so I don't really know. Some people in the chat are saying Far Cry 3. That may have it too. I don't really know. So yeah, it seems like it's more common. Well, there was another one. It doesn't have explicit sex either, but there's a great deal of like incredible amount of fan service in it. And it's actually, there's talk about it getting banned here. Some of them have been banned in other countries. In this series, it's called Senran Kagura, and it's essentially a Japanese game with these ninja girls that all have like really big boobs, and they change clothes, and they fight with like different weapons. I've never played it, but I'm actually prepared to. I'm gonna buy it specifically to support the game, because I don't want it to be banned here in the States, because I think that there's talk about it getting banned. And they have been trying to do it in other countries. Like I think Sweden banned one of the Senran Kagura games. So, because too much sex is bad, okay? What else? Lollipop Chainsaw. Somebody in the chat mentioned that. That one's definitely got fan service in it. There was a couple of games by Suda. Oh man, what the hell's his name? Suda41 or something like that, the developer. He's a Japanese guy and did the Lollipop Chainsaw, but he's also done a couple of other games that have sexual themes in them. So, and he basically he's a big fan of Quentin Tarantino and shit. So that's another Suda51, thank you. Yeah, he did Killer 7, but he's also done a couple of other games that have elements in it. So they're definitely something to check out. I think that one of the Castlevania games has a succubus in it that's pretty sexual. So yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. And Dead or Alive Extreme Volleyball, which again, that's another one that's they actually managed to censor or prevent from being released in the States. Even though, well, from what I understand, it's mainly like a sports game with a lot of mini games in it, but there's also a mode that lets you take the girls to your bedroom or something, but there's no sex. Like you can, I don't know, fuck with them or whatever. I don't know. But the point is, it's just, this sort of stuff is, there's a lot of it in gaming in different degrees. So, I don't know. I find it, it's a pretty big topic and it's pretty interesting. But there's definitely a lot of censorship going on. And again, it goes back to my original thought of, well, a lot of this stuff comes out of Japan. They seem to have, despite the fact that they have so much of it and is so much variety, it doesn't seem to impact them in the same way that ideologues in the West would like you to believe. So, because their crime rates show, and they're specifically with sexual assault, show that that's not really a problem. Now, there is, I wonder why they have special cars. I think I heard this, that they have special cars just for women there, like on the trains, to protect them from being groped. But I wonder if that isn't exaggerated in some way, or maybe that's not the reason for it. I'm not really sure. I think it's something that we should think about or look into more. So,
what I what I find interesting is it seems that the more prudish a culture is, the more sexual deviancy and assault there is.
Mm-hmm.
Just something to think about.
Yeah.
Because people try to repress it, and instead of repressing it, they try to, and so it comes out in either violent bursts or in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, your culture's started to get a little bit too decadent, a little bit too self-indulgent, when the things people are complaining about are gropings.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there's not that many stabbings or sort of muggings or burglaries or whatever's going on, then all you can complain about is women getting groped.
Yeah.
I mean, Japan's gone on a very different tangent to the West, or I might say the rest of the West, because Japan is like the Cuba of the East. It's just this little island of capitalism, along with South Korea, sort of surrounded by this sort of empire of a very different thing. But yeah, we've gone different routes, but we've both ended up on, hey, maybe we should have female-only carriages, because we're so economically, dare I say, privileged, that we've got nothing else to complain about except people getting touched. Because there's just not that many people getting decapitated in the street. Oh, except when... never mind.
So, we're going to... we may as well wrap it up. I think that this topic has been sort of thoroughly skewered, as it were, since we're on the topic. But I'm going to leave it to you guys that are listening to give us your thoughts. First of all, what are some sexualized games that are not overtly like porno games that we missed, or that you find that the sexual part of the sexual content adds to or takes away from the gaming experience? Do you think that there are games that actually rely too much on it and they try to cover up a mediocre or bad game? Do you think that you could find some examples of that as well? in addition, what about hentai? Do you think that it's really weird? Do you think it's out there, or do you think it's enjoyable? Do you think that there's something that makes it special? Like, for example, I noticed that straight up mainstream porn has been trying to emulate things that are in hentai, such as tentacles and costumes and cosplay and things like that. So there's starting to be like a bit of an overlap. Do you think that is that healthy? Do you think it's unhealthy? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the different genres of hentai can actually affect people's perceptions in real life? For example, with things like incest as a theme, bestiality as a theme, monster sex, etc. Or do you think that it's all just good fun, and just because something is wank material doesn't necessarily mean that it's unhealthy? Please leave a comment and expand on our knowledge, because we're just discussing this, but just like when we discussed critics before, I invite you guys who probably know more about this than I do to add to the conversation. Give me some newer ideas. Help us to better understand this stuff. I think that hentai and porn is not going anywhere. It's just going to get bigger, and I think that may have a lot to do with the way that we discuss or do not discuss sex. So let's talk about it. And yeah, those are basically my thoughts. So I want to thank Shannon. Do you have any final words? You have something that you want to tell us about before I go?
Yeah, just if you haven't yet, come find my channel. I do social commentary and talk about shit that pisses me off, and I do streams with people. And if you want to help me out, I don't do a Patreon. I have a shop. So if you want to come buy things like an apron that says "I am where I belong," in the kitchen, and anti-feminist stuff and all of that, go to shop.spreadshirt.com/liberallunacy and come check out my shop. So that's all I got.
Thank you. I kind of shelled earlier when I was on my own, when I was desperately plucking for things to say.
Good.
By the way, give me money. I'll say it again though. Give me some more money, you bastard. May the seed of your loin be fruitful in the belly of your woman. Love and hugs, darling fascist bully boy.
Can you do the grade thing again?
Okay. What grade thing, mate? I can't. You gotta get me right, and then you gotta get right. Because this is me and right a lot, right?
That's good.
Good.
All right. Thanks, guys. Please send us an email. Oh, and also don't. If you have a comment about the first two letters, please leave a comment about those. I would like to hear your feedback regarding sociology as a viable science, or if there are problems with it and what those problems are, and the idea of criticism and critics. So
people just asked. I'm sorry. What's my channel name?
Oh yeah.
It's Liberal Lunacy. Just youtube.com/liberal lunacy. Sorry.
There you go. That's okay. I'll drop your name in the low bar too. So, all right. Thank you, and please again send us an email, topic@badgerpod.com, and patreon.com/HoneyBadgerRadio, and we will talk to you guys next week. Thank you.